On Motorcycle Experience, our 17th Ultimate Ride continues in the mineral capital of Canada. And speaking of truly Canadian, during this week's Red Adventure stop in Neil Young's hometown, Toni Sharpless takes a closer look at the latest in high-tech riding gear. Georgian College's chief riding instructor Jenn Martin is in the house, and she's checking all the clocks this week. While over in the garage at Origin8or Custom Cycles, builder Rob Chappell is swapping out the fork on our project bike. All this and more on Motorcycle Experience. Hello and welcome to Motorcycle Experience, the voice of motorcyclists everywhere. I'm Dave Hatch, and this week we're uncovering a fantastic show for you. During the Ultimate Ride, we're in the mineral capital of Canada. The Red Adventure, we're looking at your riding gear. Jen's stopping by with shifting gears. Plus, on the project bike this week, we're swapping the front fork on our FZ07. But before we get to all that, let's check out this week's road test. All right, before we fire this baby up, let's set the scene. Back in the day, a Scrambler was a modded street bike, a kitted piece, ready to take on the competition at the local hare scrambles. Today, that race-ready off-road look is all the rage, and BMW Motorrad has dipped their toe into the mud with their modded R9 platform. At the heart of this puppy is a classic 1,170cc air oil-cooled opposed twin that BMW last used during their R1200 GS production. The bulletproof Boxer is mated to a 6-speed transmission and a Trick Akrapovic-designed high-mount dual-cam exhaust. Running gear includes a conventional 43mm fork up front, complete with retro rubber boots, while ABS-assisted stopping power comes courtesy of a 4-piston Brembo brake system. Stand back a few feet and you can see that BMW really has done their homework when it comes to capturing that look of the early 1970s Scrambler. But how does that translate into today's world of Gore-Tex and GPS? Well, let's ask this week's guest rider, Mark Russell.
Last season we sampled the Ducati Scrambler, the Moto Guzzi V7, and the Triumph Thruxton. What was missing was the R9T, and so we waited a year and we got the R9T, but we got the Scrambler version, and just thought it would be perfect to get you to throw a leg over it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked those 3 bikes you mentioned. I got to ride them all last year, and they're full of attitude. That's mostly what they have. Some are better motorcycles than others. This bike is filled with attitude.
Yeah.
And style and all that sort of stuff. It's a decent motorcycle. It's very unlike a BMW, I will say.
Yeah. So let's talk about the horizontally opposed classic BMW Boxer engine. But this one's a little different. We're so used to them making them smoother and smoother and smoother. This one, actually, they've put a little bit of roughness back into it.
Yeah, I don't know if they did that on purpose. I think it's likely just as basic as this motor can be, so that's probably what BMWs were like 50 years ago.
Yeah, well, the old R9, right?
Yeah.
But plenty of power, lots, especially for this motorcycle.
Oh, yeah,
I think what is nice to see here is they didn't cheap out on the braking department. It's not like it's a single disc or anything like that. There's some really great brakes there.
Yeah, and they're monstrously huge at the front here. I didn't ever use the back brake. That's kind of the way I roll. There's one back there, I assume. But those are huge. I don't think you could ever get them hot or anything. Lots of stopping power. Yeah, I was happy with that.
Mark, you know, this motorcycle surprised me with a couple of things. One, I expected to see a chain, just because it's kind of old school, elemental motorcycle. Instead, we've got shaft, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I was just surprised to see a shaft back there. And the other thing were these rims. They're really interesting.
Yeah.
They're spoked, but I don't think they're spoked, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. The way they've handled it is really interesting. So you got the spokes, because that's part of the cool look thing. Yeah. A retro thing, but the spokes don't go through the wheel where the air is kept inside the middle. They come out the edge of the rim here. So that's a tubeless tire that you would never have trouble with spokes poking into a tube or causing a leak in the rim.
Yeah. Really clever.
Yeah, an interesting solution.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it before.
Riding position. I like the big wide bars. I like the sort of wind in your face kind of feel. You're hanging out there.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I could see this bike really accepting all kinds of modifications in that department, which would be kind of fun because it's a sporty bike. You're kind of inspired to go fast, go through corners. If you didn't need it for off-road or dirt road kind of work, you could have a much narrower bar and actually have it lower too, and it would still be fun.
One of the things that really impresses me is just the cosmetic approach to everything. It's pretty special. I can't remember the last time we saw a brown saddle next to a matte finish, and then blacked out everything else. What did you think of just the cosmetic fit and finish?
Thought it looked awesome, and actually I do see lots of brown saddles and matte finish because all the kids in Toronto with their cafe racers, that's the way they build them. And it's sort of a current thing. It looks really cool. That's part of the attitude of the bike. A tack, I think, actually would be nice, even if it was, actually I would have a sweeping tack and a digital speedo in that one pod. The one pod is a nice sort of nod to retro, minimal. But I would have liked a rev counter.
So who are you going to recommend this to?
It's going to be an experienced rider. I don't think this is going to be anybody's first motorcycle. And it could be the kind of rider who's had a cafe racer or thinks they want to build one, but you know that there's a lot of effort in that. And when you're done, you have a 50-year-old motorcycle that doesn't work properly.
Right.
So this could provide the same kind of fun, but it's going to work the way a motorcycle's supposed to work. It's going to have a warranty. It's going to be a BMW.
Yeah.
But still have the fun that you'd get from a elemental, sporty motorcycle.
Yeah. And it's definitely nailing the look.
Yeah.
Did you see Steve McQueen? He just went that way.
I can't imagine riding this across a desert at 100 miles an hour because I think you'd have to be pretty fit.
Steve McQueen would ride this on any Sunday.
Well, that's because he was tough.
Yeah. Nice job.
Thank you.
Hang in there, we've got plenty more experience still ahead. Next, Toni, Sharpless and friends show off their riding gear, while Norm Wells and I continue our 100% Canadian adventure, eh? Portions of this broadcast are brought to you in part by Honda Canada, Suzuki Canada, and BMW Motorrad. Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and it's time now for this week's installment in this season's Ultimate Ride. And as you know, Norm Wells and I are heading for Manitoulin Island, but we're going kind of the scenic route. And this week, we're in the mineral capital of Canada. If you follow our show, then you know that each year, Norm Wells of BMW Motorrad and myself have been packing up our motorcycles and setting off to explore a variety of destinations all across North America. This year, after originally declaring Whitehorse as our base camp for our next Ultimate Ride, we switched gears at the very last minute and came up with a new plan to explore some classic Canadian roads and fall sites during what would be our ultimate tribute to Canada's 150th anniversary. Day one into our Maple Leaf-inspired trip was jam-packed as we headed northeast out of Toronto using Highway 12 and 35 en route to the now famous and iconically Canadian small town once visited by Samuel de Champlain, Bob Cajun. When originally planning our route for this ride, I insisted that this tiny slice of Canadiana, situated on the Trent-Severn Waterway and immortalized by the Tragically Hip, must be our first stop of the day, before continuing on northeast to another small town, Bancroft.
So Norm, here we are midway through day one in our fall ride to, I wanted to say Whitehorse, but we're not going to Whitehorse. That's right, we're going to Manitoulin Island. The long way to Manitoulin, the reverse loop. What a morning. We had to get out of Toronto. I started to get a little teary-eyed. You know, we went north on 48 and 12, and suddenly we were hitting Georgina, Beaverton, Pefferlaw, and the fabulous Argyle Road. These were all stomping grounds for me as a teenager, you know, bringing back a lot of memories of my teenage years, but the ultimate stopping point for that first coffee of the day was Bob Cajun, and what a great way to start this tour.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bob Cajun's a beautiful little town, and it was something that you wanted to hit on the way out, and you know, I've always liked Bob Cajun. It's got that restaurant right on the water where the locks are, so it's really cool. But I mean, you like it for other reasons.
Well, you know, we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of this country, and you know, Canada's official band, you know, the Tragically Hip, they put Bob Cajun on the map, right?
Yes,
so we had to stop there. Tip of the hat to the band. And then from there on, it was all about roads.
Yeah, that's where the first of the 500 series road starts. So we took the 507. It's about a 40-kilometer length, and it goes along the Kawartha Provincial Park, I think it is. Kawartha Park.
Highlands, yeah.
Kawartha Highlands. Beautiful road. I've done that one a lot of times. And then from there, we started heading east again.
Yeah, well, we passed through my favorite town, Catchacoma. It's true. And yeah, then at Tory Hill, we headed east again on the 118. Did you catch the 648? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I've done that loop a couple times, actually. As I said, we've come here before with a bunch of us from BMW to put some mileage on bikes, so we've done this area quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is sort of the official home of the Calaboogie road racing and the Corduroy Enduro. And it's all because the roads are just so great here. So you can spend a little time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can deviate from your direct route and take the opportunity to do these 500s up and down and sideways. And you're still going to get to where you're going, just might take you a little longer.
And definitely early October is the time to be here. Like the leaves are about halfway through turning, and they were just spectacular heading up the 507.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the weather was a little bit...
It's great, but still the colors were popping.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, completely, yeah.
So from here, we're going to continue on 62 North, Maynooth, and then what's the plan after Maynooth?
After Maynooth, we'll start heading east, and we'll hook up with some more of the 500 series roads and make our way to Killaloe on our way to Pembroke finally. But Killaloe apparently is worth a visit. You know a little bit about it because I think you might have been in that area at some point in time, but we'll see what it has to offer.
This is all about Canada's 150, right?
Yeah.
Killaloe, home of the beaver tail. It doesn't get more Canadian than a beaver tail. We've got to go there. All right, let's hit it. Nice stuff.
Let's go.
Next week, be sure to tune in as Norm and I will be continuing to ride northeast towards Pembroke, Ontario, in search of the iconic Canadian beaver tail. Now, let's catch up with Toni Sharpless and her friends Mike and Michelle Bell in Neil Young's old hometown, Omemee, Ontario.
So Toni, it's been a great ride. It's just such a typical fall day here in southern Ontario. And by that I mean, we started out, it was fairly chilly this morning when we left Toronto. And here we are, it's like 70 degrees and it's warm. And the first thing I did when we got off the bikes was take this liner out.
Yeah, that's your thermal liner. So you notice it's got metallic finish on the inside. That reflects the heat back to your skin that you're letting off from your body. So that's your warmth liner. And this jacket also has a windproof, waterproof liner too.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was there.
I know. So that's because they conceal the zipper. So if you want to wear it on the outside as a windbreaker, the zipper is concealed, and you just unzip it like this, and then you can take it out of your jacket and have a total mesh jacket that's ventilated right through to your skin, so it keeps you nice and cool in the hot weather. So about midday we started to, you know, layer down a little bit. When we started this morning, it was barely 10 degrees.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful now. And carrying a backpack is perfect for a nice little bike like this. These bikes are so nimble and agile that I didn't want to make them, you know, laden down with luggage. So doing a backpack option is the way to go. And we just put in these items, and then you can layer down, layer up, depending on the weather and what time of day it is.
Right. Now I noticed Michelle is wearing a suit, a two-piece suit, and she's gone in the full Gore-Tex. I'm wearing jeans. I kind of cheated this morning with the jeans. It was a bit chilly. But Gore-Tex for a little more warmth if it gets really chilly tonight, perfect solution. Yeah,
Gore-Tex is a membrane that is windproof and waterproof. So a lot of jackets use that material for those properties.
Yeah.
But you know, really a nice Cordura pant is the way to go because it has a really high abrasion resistance.
Right.
Other than leather, it's probably the next best thing to slide down, you know, pavement in. So Cordura is a really high quality man-made material.
Right. Well, this is great. What a great way to demonstrate how you can spend an entire day from very cold to very hot to very cold again, I'm sure, all with one suit.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's the way to go. And so much fun having a blast day.
Well, thanks for bringing all this gear along. It's been awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Up next, Jenn Martin is all over the pre-flight checklist. Plus, we'll look in on the progress of this season's Yamaha FZ07 project bike. Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and it's time now to look in on our project bike, courtesy of the folks at Yamaha Motor Canada and Origin8or Custom Cycles. Now, the project bike does not have a name as of yet, but after we swap the front fork, you can see that it's definitely taking on a street scrambler or flat tracker look. Well, see for yourself. This season, Rob Chappell over at Origin8or Custom Cycles in Oshawa, Ontario, has committed to tearing down a brand new and thoroughly stylish and modern parallel twin-cylinder motorcycle, the Yamaha FZ07, in an effort to transform it into a funky, retro-themed street tracker or scrambler. Last week, Rob stripped the FZ07 of its futuristic bodywork, its 5-piece plastic molded tank, and the heavy underslung exhaust pipe. And today, he's taking a closer look at the front fork.
So Rob, here we are back with the Project FZ07. You know, clearly what you're doing here, we talked about this last week, is you're trying to take this street fighter, this naked futuristic bike, and really make it look like a flat tracker, a street tracker, if you will.
Yeah.
And you've got it stripped down. We went through that last week, and then I noticed that the fork, you've swapped out the fork, and already you've got a bar on there that just looks like a flat tracker. Tell me what you've done here so far with the front end.
So the idea was to give ourselves more of a wider stance, sort of like a dirt bike, more of that tracker kind of feel. The first step was to add a set of inverted forks, gives it that beefier kind of front end. And we borrowed these from an XSR 900, which led to some other issues. Obviously, fitting it. This was originally an ABS bike, so we stripped out the brake lines, and we're going to convert it to a standard front end, new brake lines, that sort of thing. Surprisingly, the triple trees slid right in using the stock bearing.
They pressed right in.
So it was perfect. Yeah, good fit. The only difference being this is a 2-inch longer front end.
Right.
So as you can see, we've raised it up through the top triple, a good 1/2 inch.
Yeah.
And then we actually got new linkage for the rear to raise it accordingly so that we're symmetrical and we're not, front end high.
Right.
And that gives us the look we wanted, which was a higher kind of dirt bike stance. Which should help with the ability to flick in the corners and generally have a good time on this bike. So.
Yeah, no, it's really dramatically changed the bike right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Were there any other issues up here in terms of wiring or the key or anything like that?
Yeah, so the key on the XSR is offset to the left, and the stock bike is dead center. So that's causing some issues with steering lock if you want to turn your bike and lock the wheel to the side. For our project, we're not too concerned about that. We're going to actually remove the key. I'm going to relocate it onto the side of the bike, and when I do the headlight, which is going to be a new kind of round style, we'll be able to recess it in nice and tight in this bike. So the idea is to keep it that tight little package you're looking at now, and not the longer look that Yamaha originally had on the bike.
Have you thought about a speedo, attack, anything like that?
Yeah, actually I'm going to reuse the stock instruments, which will be perched down nice and low to keep everything kind of in that nice low line I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And in using them, it keeps all the stock computer and everything working as it should,
Awesome. I can see we've got some new rubber, a new pipe, so maybe next week when we come back, we'll talk about
Cool.
what's been going on in that department.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Yeah, thanks.
It's looking good.
Cool.
Okay, now that we've got you ready to hit the starter button, stay tuned because next, Shifting Gears segment editor Jenn Martin has some great advice on checking over your motorcycle before your next ride. Stay with us. Portions of this broadcast are brought to you in part by Honda Canada, Suzuki Canada, and BMW Motorrad. Welcome back to Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and we'll wrap up our show now by turning the spotlight on what to do before heading down the road on your next ride. Joining us now is professional motorcycle instructor Jenn Martin.
Jen, T-clock. I had a motorcyclist come up to me recently at a rally and said, how often should I check my motorcycle? And I said, every time you ride. And I thought we should talk about T-clock and why you should check your motorcycle every time you ride.
Absolutely. We've talked about this a number of times, but yeah, T-clock is a great way. It's like a checklist that you can put in your head, and you just check off each little letter, and you know then that you've probably done a good once over on your motorcycle. And yeah, every single time you ride.
Yeah. So let's do T-clock.
Yeah, let's do T-clock.
T.
T, tires. It stands for tires. 2 wheels, fairly important, so your tire contact is extremely important to go over.
Right.
For sure.
So we want to check the tire pressures.
Yes, for sure. No underinflation or overinflation.
And we want to make sure visually we inspect the tires for cracks, wear.
Yeah, wear, the
damage.
tread. Yeah, and anything maybe embedded that you got.
T-clock. T. C.
C. That's the cables and controls.
Right.
So you're going to take a look at the cables. I mean, if you can see the cables, you want to check for fraying, if there's any fraying, because that would maybe give you a hint. Perhaps maybe we should change them out. And your controls.
Brake levers, clutch levers, make sure they're not broken,
Yeah,
they're not
and-
loose.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Control C. L.
L, we get into the lights, because when we turn on the key, the lights should come on. And so you want to check and make sure that you have your headlight on, off, the high beam, low beam, your signal lights, definitely check and make sure that they're working.
Yeah.
And the brake lights.
The all-important brake lights. C. L. O.
Oh, oil.
Oil.
Yeah. So oil is very important. We want to make sure our oil levels are good.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to check the oil and you haven't done that, open up the owner's manual.
Perfect.
Sometimes we have sight glasses or dipsticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. C again.
C, that's the chassis.
Yeah.
So we want to definitely, now we look at our drive and suspension and make sure just do that whole once over on that motorcycle.
Check the fork seals, make sure they're not leaking.
Yeah, make sure there's no leaks for
And also
sure.
make sure everything is functional and
compression,
moving
yeah.
and up and down and loose and can function, basically. K.
Kickstand.
Kicks. Now that's a weird one. Kickstand. How so? That you have a kickstand?
That your kickstand is true.
Yeah.
That it is working properly. I mean, it's resting on the kickstand here as well. If you have a center stand, you want to check that out. But as well, just before you're ready to go, where does that kickstand go?
You better lift it up.
I would think so, yeah.
T-clock.
T-clock.
Every time you ride. Great advice. Thanks, Jen.
Excellent.
Well, that's it for this week's program, folks. We're all out of time, and I think it's time to ride. But before I leave you, I just want to remind you, check your calendars, mark it right now, Friday, June 9th, Picton, Ontario, the Regent Theatre, our first annual Motorcycle Experience Film Fest. You won't want to miss it. 3 classic films, craft beers, wines, food truck, prize giveaways, demo rides. It's going to be a hoot. Also, Saturday, September 23rd, it's our 4th annual Wings Over the County in Hillier Creek State Winery in Picton, Ontario. You won't want to miss that one either. Check out our website, motorcycleexperience.ca. Till next week, keep your feet on the pegs and your right hand cranked. Bye for now.